your boots. I'll go get them for you.
Alright, so spoiler territory for Superman. You've been warned, right? So as we mentioned, right. So as I mentioned before, how I love that text at the beginning, and we can talk about it now, right? 3 centuries ago, the metahuman was brought to Earth, and then
first metahuman, yeah.
right, first metahuman. So, right. So
then 30 years ago, Superman show up,
yeah.
and then
3 years, then 3 hours. So I love how it just sort of goes out like that. It's very old school in terms of how it looks, right? That's how it's laid out or whatnot, right? Now, in retrospect, I was thinking about it after the fact, right? I thought that was a really, really smart call, writing from a writing perspective, right? That, Superman will suffer his first defeat, right? By, this character that we didn't even know about called, let me just pull it up quickly.
Hammer of Baravia.
Yeah, the Hammer of Baravia, right? And you see the character, right? And then eventually you learn is this character called Ultraman, right? So I know, Ricardo, you probably saw the twist a mile away, right? But I didn't see it coming, right? And I should have known. I should have put up a DC cap on and be like, oh, it makes sense, right? It would have been a clone of Superman, right? Now here's the thing.
What did you it's Gunn pulling from like real places, because it's a little bit of Superman 4, it's a little bit of the animated series. What ends up with the character is very, very that might go somewhere else with that. Because like they square into characters there, and it's Gunn just kind of it's really a kind of Superman mythos gumbo kind of coming together here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so as I say, when I saw they had the Ultraman in the narrative, I was like, okay, a clone, but then most of the versions of Ultraman is really the Earth 3 version of Superman.
Yeah, I was very confused because I was like, there's no way we're doing mirror universe Ultraman. Not in this movie. There's too much going on. And then it turns out, oh, wait, no, it's Bizarro.
Right. But I think, Ultraman also, he's more bizarre than Ultraman. In terms of his, like, intelligence, he's kind of dumb and so and so.
Yeah.
And other result that I like, involving crypto, is like, okay, I like that.
Right. No, for me, right, with that reveal, right? So first off, with Ultraman, right? Very noir, he have a noir look, if you remember the character from the lead character from The Boys, right? Just that masked character, who doesn't say a word, right? Now I was a little turned off for the fact that he had this suit that he put on, and this was something, admittedly, guys, that I had to get used to with Lex pretty much figuring out all these counter moves and all these kind of stuff. So he would just tell his staff, B1 or B12 or A6 or whatever, and the machine will move like that.
Is a gamer bro. I love it.
Yeah, he's a gamer bro, right? But like at first when I see like, okay, we really doing this? Like wouldn't Ultraman be able to control the suit in a Iron Man-esque kind of way? But whatever, I get that, it has to be about Lex, right? So I guess the point is anybody could go into that suit and pretty much mash up Superman. Superman. I guess that's the point.
The idea is that he needs somebody strong, because he clearly, like, what I like about it is that it's a tipping point for Superman in terms of the narrative. So it's not a beginning, but it's Lex finally figuring out how to beat Superman after 3 odd years, right? So him getting something as strong as Superman and then making somebody as smart to think. And this has gone like fixing a lot of stuff that we had with Thing. Because it's a mix of Superman 3 and Superman 4, right? With the narrative, the story beat now. It is like, the machine stuff, but also the clone stuff. Like, okay, like I get where you're going for. It's smart. It's like a smart take. A lot of it is just, him taking a lot of ideas that we laughed at or make bad or just. But I always thought, like, look, Superman 4 is pretty bad, but it's really, to me, I think it's a great idea with a bad execution, right? And I know, what do you call him? Bruce Timm had a version of that comic that they make work sometime in the past. I forget when they wrote that. And it's like, okay, yeah, you just have to tell this better. Ideas over execution. You pull some stuff from Man of Steel, like, concept wise. Like, okay, that was from Man of Steel, this thing, so and so. And it's just, again, ideas over execution is how you feel about that. And how to make the take work for what it is. And that's why this works for the most part. That's why even the stuff that I hate, because he even puts in a real estate scheme argument a little bit.
Yeah.
But even in the context of the narrative, it works, especially with the allusions. To me, it's a very blatant allusion to well, you could say Russia, Ukraine, but there's a lot of Israel Palestine in this. Like
it is, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So where they work with it and the conceit of it, it's like all of this working for what it is. And again, it's a bit much, a little too much. As I say, I'd scrape off a little bit off of the top. It busted out of the seams a little bit, but I still think it mostly works.
Right. If I could say a couple more things about Ultraman, and then you guys could just pick a spoiler and talk about it, right? So for me, what I wish though in retrospect is that the reveal they should have led into the reveal a little bit more smoothly, right? Because I felt like in the second act we were barely seeing Ultraman, right? It was more about Superman in his pocket universe, which you'll get to a little bit, right? And we just sort of forgot about Ultraman. We forgot about the engineer as well, right? Who is a character that I'm not familiar with, but when I saw her in that official trailer, I was like, oh, that's a really cool skill set, and how she uses that skill set was really cool, right? But anyway, I felt like if we saw a little bit more of Ultraman, we would start to think, hey, why this character moving in a Superman kind of way? And then when Lex reveals who he is, and then he actually takes out the mask and realizes, oh, it's actually Superman, but in this case it's David with, a little wig on or whatnot. It's like, oh, that makes sense. But because he was...
The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, basically Winter Soldier. You're right. But because he was basically out of the second act, I sort of forgot about it. So when they just dropped this thing, it just sort of came out of the blue, in my opinion, right? So I just felt like they could have just had a little bit more of Ultraman in it. And I'll say the same thing with other characters as well, too. They could have had more moments with them, so I would have been more invested in them when I see them in the third act, right? But that's just my thought on Ultraman. I don't know if you all have anything else to weigh on him before we move on to other spoilers, but yeah.
No, yeah, it was a beat that I knew was, again, we got, as you say, I kind of see it coming. I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be a clone or something. Whatever. Because when I saw him walk through the thing,
the Fortress of Solitude. Because I saw it happen. I was like, but wait, but why? How did that happen? But I tell myself, all right, let me just watch the show, and eventually they will reveal the answer. Don't mind you had to wait a full hour or so to get the answer.
Right.
But exactly. It's like, oh, okay, that's why. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so that's it. I just like, okay, that's this character. They're going to do this thing. And so it's not a big deal. So it's that. So they make it work.
All right. Well, CC, you have any thoughts, extra thoughts on Ultraman before, we move on to the spoiler?
Well, I feel like we talked about this, but this is as good a time as any to kind of talk about the way Lex Luthor is written in this, because we talked about in the previous Reign of the Superman episode, Lex Luthor is not in the Mole Men. Lex Luthor in the original 70s movie is interesting. Like, he's not... I feel like it would be controversial to say that he's not the best Lex Luthor. Like, I mostly like the way Lex Luthor is written in the 70s films. He's not my absolute favorite. And then BVS and Superman Returns are both misfires. But I like this Lex as essentially this, like, I think, Matthew, you kind of mentioned this in the non-spoiler section, but a very topical Lex Luthor. Like, he's the asshole billionaire. He's the asshole billionaire with, like, too much time on his hands. I mentioned him being a bit of a gamer bro. And I find that writing absolutely fascinating, because even Superman in the movie, there's so many memes about this now, but even Superman in the movie at one point says to him, you're like, your obsession with me is getting a little weird.
Right.
Which I thought was it's both intense in a way I like, but it's also really funny. In a way that
I think what you see with him is not so much him as per se, but I felt the arc towards him doesn't really work all that well. And I'll say it's not so much him, but Superman. So he feels like a mix between the Rosenbaum Lex and the 70s Lex. I'm forgetting the actor's name right now.
Gene Hackman. Okay, I thought you was going to talk about he was going to talk about the animated Lex Luthor.
No. Well, I think he's not like that at all. You don't feel like that at all. Like, because that guy, the guy from Clancy Brown Lex is like a much more mature dude. You have his shit together, and then the idea. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Cece, what were you saying?
Yeah, the Clancy Brown Lex is a lot like, he has these moments where he has this violent streak, but he's also the kind of master planner, the mastermind Lex Luthor more. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, this dude just he's more like Gene Hackman, but mixed with Rosenbaum. He feels more like a Rosenbaum, like a young dude who just still trying to get bearings, not focused, kind of not locked in, kind of getting a little pissed off, and that works. It totally works as a
It
Lex
does.
thing. But as I said, I find his arc is not as strong for me, and this is one of the weak parts of the film, the genuine weak parts of the film for me, is that I felt he didn't deserve like I know it's Superman, but he doesn't to me especially after well again spoilers the way he killed the guy the Mali I think
Jesus Christ, yeah.
right
Which,
but that dude doesn't
which sorry to cut, which by the way was a great moment in my opinion, because it just sort of
yeah
catches the audience by surprise. But
you know
if you're
it,
used
it,
to
it
James
totally
Gunn
twists it,
movies, it's like you have to have
right
that really like shocking moment,
yeah
of violence,
what
right?
what what what's shocking about it is that for me is like usually with Russian roulette it'll be like oh they'll wait make you wait a little bit and a sort of suspense and time and like no second
Yes,
click
yes, second shot. And I think he says
you
after
know
the
like
fact, "Oh, I didn't know it was going to happen so quick."
yeah
Like,
exactly. Yeah, like that.
Oh my
I took
god.
casual about it. But I felt, and again, you could say, look, this is well a more testament to the character of the Superman, but he didn't deserve the grace of that conversation of Clark having to still prove to him that
oh,
he's human.
I
Like
see.
that should have been a more public conversation. Like it should have been filmed, and I don't know, like it shouldn't have been a personal thing with him and Lex. That should have been like, oh, well, Tess Mocker filming him and it going out live on Instagram, and Superman, making his case for humanity to the public,
Right.
not
Mhm.
Lex.
Not
Like
to
that,
Lex.
I felt
That
Lex
makes
doesn't
sense.
deserve that
That
grace
that
after
Now,
makes
murdering
now,
that
sense.
dude.
now about that. Before we get to season, now about that, right? So the story, the plot point that I wish they could have fine tuned a little bit better was the whole deciphering of the message that that Kal, well, Jor-El and Lara left
Right.
behind, right? Because even when I left the cinema, I was thinking, oh, they lied when they say, oh, these are the rusty words I was saying about,
Nope.
well, his purpose was to come to invade, to invade Earth.
Yeah.
Sort of oh gosh, like an
Right.
Omni-Man kind of thing, right? Like I thought like he
Right.
doctored that or something like that, right? Now, as I
No.
say, there with the whole with him talking to Lex, if that was put out to the public, then the public would have been like, oh, all right, so
Right.
Superman was good all
Right.
along. They just treated as well. In this case, in the movie, it was like, oh, we don't realize that Lex had created was spurring the
Right.
war in the first place. So yeah,
Right. Right.
now we apologize to Superman. He wasn't a bad
Right.
guy
Yeah.
after all, but
Yeah.
if he had just filmed that conversation as he said, the
Yeah.
people would have warmed up to him more,
Exactly. I felt that could have come together a little better because they do it
I
with
think that
Jimmy and Lois and them exposing him in the ending and connecting him to everything and all that's fine. Like good journalism have to bring down Lex. That's another
I
thing.
love that. I love that.
That's another
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
that I know they had to go for. And I was like, yeah, that's another thing. I would totally again James Gunn's really one of us. To put it again, gun don't jam, gun don't miss. Like is one of those things that I totally think that a journalist has to take down Lex Luthor. But what they do with it is they had Jimmy and Lois do the big story, but then they had I like at the end and the Clark had the small story with the guy being murdered. And I'm like, oh, that's good stuff
That
too.
was so
Like
good.
small,
Yeah, that was so
simple.
good.
But that's good stuff, right? It's like this is Superman fan cooking right here. Like that the stuff like that I don't have a problem with at all. But again, my only issue is how much grace does Lex deserve? And I felt he got a little too much grace still. Again, you could say, well, no, this is the testament to the character, and still giving him grace
Right.
even
I
if
was
he
about to say that. Yeah.
murder guy in front of him in that sense. But I still that is a bit of a stretch. I don't know if it's still too much of a Snyder bro here or something like that, right? In that, right? But that's how it. I was like, does Lex Luthor deserve this? Like in that sense, I don't know. It should have been more case of Superman for the people. Whatever. It's just
Well, and I
small
think
tweak,
for
but not a big
me,
deal. Whatever.
well, I think for me, what I like about Superman is that Superman always challenges, and I'm saying this, and as someone who's been reading almost nothing but Superman comics all year, good Superman challenges you, the reader, in kind of a, I know I wouldn't be this nice. If that makes sense.
Right.
Like I think there's always that sense of, dude, could you be just a little bit less kind just for me?
Right.
I want
Right.
you to smash this guy's head in, but like. He never does.
And we still kind of get that come up a little bit because we get the Avengers moment, right? Yeah, no, with Loki, right? We get that Loki Avengers moment with Crypto.
Yeah.
Yeah, we totally get that. So we get that still, I suppose. It's like, all right, well, all right. If let me just put it like this, right? Like we'd be interested to see Supergirl crash out if we did never find that dog, right? That's all we'll see. Like, the Supergirl character is like that. Like we'll see that with her character possibly.
I can't I hope that because I know that the Supergirl movie is mostly going to be about her, but I
Right.
need a movie where we get to see this Superman and this Supergirl interacting with each other,
Right.
because that's already the dynamic there is amazing.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I'm a big fan of Tom King. I think Tom King is really solid. So like, if getting that level of like quality with Woman of Tomorrow, I could dig the hell out of that. It has the same kind of similar beats we work with. There's one scene, somebody, I forget who it was complaining about, the one scene have her looking in a bad light, but I was like, no, that's the scene. That's the thing that straight up leads to her narrative going forward. That's fine.
Yeah.
The later talk about the Justice Gang.
Right, Well, you read my mind. I thought they were great. They were fun on screen, but I felt like, I don't know. I hate to be the one to say it, boy, but I felt like Hawkgirl was just put to the side. And I actually like the actress. Like quite recently she was in Last of Us season 2. I thought she was great.
Exactly,
like I understand why she is just that one who she will do what she have to do, right? But I just felt like she could have been given more to do, right? Of course, Nathan Fillion as Green Lantern, he shines, but.
I am still mad that we got that bullshit with Ryan Reynolds instead of his Green Lantern.
Listen, I wasn't even thinking about that movie, while I was watching this movie.
I just so mad because First Flight is so good though. Like we just get a live action. All they have to do is just give you a live action version of First Flight with Nathan Fillion, and I would be happy. Get that bullshit with Ryan Reynolds. But yeah, he as Guy Gardner totally works. Like he's great. Like he's
perfect.
I really thought he would have been like obnoxious. But he's obnoxious.
Douchey, but in a laughable way,
No, I thought he would have wear on me. I thought he would have completely wear on me. Like, I really hate this character. No, he is perfect. He's exactly where you need the Guy Gardner character to be in terms of the obnoxious nature of him. But he's like ridiculously competent with the ring, and he's like, and then they make it a little bit of a swipe at Marvel. It's like clearly Avengers. Like it's that aspect of the whole being the police, just police but more with power aspect of it. But then they had Mr. Terrific, have the crisis of conscience, and them having their arc works as well. Which is, we don't interfere, but because of the Superman guy, we go and interfere now. And here's why. And his moment at the end is great. That ending with the boy calling for Superman, and he shows up, and then he's an asshole as usual.
That was great. I love that. I love that.
That's fun. Yeah. Even the jokes with him, like the jokes is like, I thought the joke would have wear on, but like what they do with him and Metamorph at the end is a simple beat. Little small beats like that is funny.
Oh, right. Well, with the name of the group being the Justice Gang, right? Also, before we get to CC, mad points for showing the Hall of Justice.
Right.
It looks great.
That was the full narrative of all the wild shit that went down past, right? And you get to see, like, I'm sure somebody gonna like tell you, okay, look thing and look this and look that. I didn't sit down to watch the movie a second time to see the thing. I couldn't find time, but I wanted to just.
You're talking about like, the painting.
The mural.
The mural. Yeah, I only glanced at it though. I swear I see a flash though. I swear I saw a flash.
Oh yeah, definitely I saw a flash. Like, but my thing is that to see. Like every little thing they went in, all the shit they was up to in the last how many years and how long they're going on.
Like 3 years,
remember, the point. Well, it's not just 3 years with Justice Gang, because I'm sure they're older than that. And the implication is that the implication is that they're the Avengers, so they are wrong since like 2012 or whatever. Like that's a joke. I always thought that was the other tone going on there. But like Superman's the new kid on the block, and because he's so much stronger than them, he kind of make them look like assholes. Because especially with him interfering, and not having any consistency with the government, right? Because like they do I like the stuff with Rick Flag, and they reference that too. Like they're going to have this argument, and they're going to get serious. And that whole dimension of the whole storyline of what Superman going to be in this world and getting into that. And listen, to this day, if they even tap into the Cadmus arc in Justice League, they could tap into that shit.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, make it work.
But CC, because you were going to say, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think one of the things I love about this, and I mentioned this in the non-spoiler section, but I'll elaborate here. Gunn in a recent interview said that his approach to this movie was that he was like, hey, when I grew up reading comic books in the 70s and like in the 80s and 90s and whatever, I didn't read a whole lot of stuff that was like just Superman by himself, because in the comics at the time, most of the time he's interacting with other people, and that informed the way he wrote this movie. Like, if you think about it, all the Superman movies up until this point have been, except for BVS, have all been in these worlds where Superman is the only superpowered being. And Gunn, and this is what gets into some of the stuff like Gunn making the decision to write this in an established world with an established Superman and a Justice Gang and the Hall of Justice and like all this other stuff going on. And like the implication, and like we know from Creature Commandos that there have been superheroes going way back in the history of this world, is very much wanting to create a lived-in world with a lot of superheroes in it, because that's like the kind of Superman stories that Gunn grew up in. And also, I think kind of this idea that like, hey, it's 2025. Superheroes have been like a mainstay of like blockbusters for well over 2 decades at this point. Like, yeah, we were getting superhero blockbusters in 2005, quite a few. So like by this point in time, audiences kind of expect to see movies with like more than just one superhero in them, if that makes sense. Like you can still do the opposite. Like we saw this with like Matt Reeves' Batman, which didn't need to bring in like the extended Bat family or whatever. But at the same time, like this idea of like a well lived in world is like absolutely, it's so much fun. I do agree that like Hawkgirl doesn't get as much to do as either Terrific or the Guy Gardner Green Lantern. I think some of the things she does get to do are great. Like the whole bit where she kills the dictator.
Right.
It's fantastic.
It is, yeah.
You won't kill me. You're like Superman. No, I'm not. Drops him.
No, wait. Didn't he say something along the lines of, like he was just mocking the fact that she was a woman? So he's like, aren't you, I think he said something like you're delicate or something. Aren't you supposed to be delicate?
It's a great moment because it reminds us why Superman's a hero, because Superman doesn't kill as well. So like Superman had an encounter with this guy and he like dragged him out in the middle of the desert and was like, don't be a dictator. But then that's not what most other superheroes are going to do.
That's right. Yeah.
Other like Hawkgirl in particular, because the Hawks can be vicious.
Yeah. But still, I just wish that she was given a little bit more screen time. I didn't need the backstory and all that kind of stuff. Same thing goes for Guy Gardner and Mr. Terrific. But all right, so yes, Mr. Terrific does steal the show from the two of them for sure, absolutely. And rightfully so. I like how he just moves when it comes to things like listen, like this is not how it works, like this Lima, let me do my job, like he's that type, right? And that leads to a very 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 decent post-credit scene which he'll wrap things up with, right? But like he really stands up. But just for this, at the end of the day, we could have got a little bit more out of Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl.
Right.
It's one of those.
I just think it's just the actor gets getting some justice from being Darwin from X-Men. That's some bullshit. So yeah, look, I like the X-Men movie, but I seriously a ridiculous part of that movie. People hated that, and like, but boy, come back and get some. Yeah, I thought Mr. Terrific was excellent. It just
amazing.
Easily one of the smartest humans on Earth. Like, I think he's like third smartest or something like that. They make him work. Great character. What they do with him and how they just set up that him bounce off of Lois and the rest of the thing. All that is good stuff. And then himself, Lex's problem and just having been the main plot, and it just gets felt like an episode of the show. Like that is why it works. It doesn't try to feel like a thing. This is just starting a universe. Treated like that. You don't have to be some big epic or anything like that. Just telling a good story, and that's what it did. He does fit in that really well.
And I think it's one of those cases, and like, obviously it is something I'll acknowledge as a weakness of the film. I definitely get the vibe that any character in this movie, especially like a superhero that I'm like, oh, I wish I had more of them. I know I will get more of them because like, that these characters are going to be in other projects already. Like hell, even this Rick Flag that we're seeing, I think at this point in time, this is his second, and he will have 3 appearances in this version of the DCU because he's in Creature Commandos. He's going to be in Peacemaker. He's got a whole arc about him versus Peacemaker, and then he's in this movie. So like, I know with someone like Hawkgirl, for example, like she's only in this movie as much as she needs to be, but I know for a fact I'm going to see her again. Like, I know for a fact I'm going to see her in future projects.
Right. So, few more spoilers for you, right? Also, did not see this coming a mile away, but I should have known because next month, Peacemaker. Yeah, John Cena makes an appearance, right, in a show, in a talk show with what's the guy's name? Michael Ian Black, I think that's his name. I can know him literally through the VH1 I Love the 80s show. Like I used to watch that religiously.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I know him from. I didn't expect to see him
Yeah,
in
he
that,
played.
but I know he was in.
Was he name of that character? And I think he's played like a kind of like a news guy. I forget. But I was like, oh, they get him for this. All right, cool. That's fun.
Yeah, I know he probably was in a recent James Gunn film, but I can't remember what it is right now. But yeah, the inclusion of the inclusion of Peacemaker was kind of funny as well. But I can't even begin to imagine the people who probably saw that scene like, wait, who the hell is this? Wait, who? What? Peacemaker? I know. I don't want to say it's like Marvel, but it's kind of like the issue a lot of people have with Marvel films, especially like the Marvels, for example, right? Where it's like, well, I haven't watched Hawkeye, so I don't know who this character is, and you want me to stop what I'm doing to watch this, to understand this? What are you trying to do? You know what I mean? But it's just a simple show, a little scene that you see on a TV screen, right? So it's like that, right? Just to touch quickly on the humor, right? Yes, there's a lot of humor in it as well too. I like that there is, but at times it sort of like cuts up it kind of shoot it at times. It could feel like stuck in at just really weird times now. So it kind of adds a bit of absurdity to things, right? So case in point, as I brought up in these spoiler free section, the convo that Superman has with in his outfit, with Lois, right, in their apartment, right, in her apartment, and outside there's this interdimensional being that the Justice Gang is trying to wipe out, right? And he just literally tells her, yeah, there's this interdimensional imp and they'll be fine, right? But they're having this really this great one-on-one. I don't want to say powerful, right? But very emotional, right? And you could just, like, for me, it just really feels like it's just there as a background, as a prop, as a background prop, right? Because yeah, it is literally this big flashing light, and you're just seeing what, like you're seeing like the green of Guy Gardner's ring and all that kind of stuff. And while it looks good, like aesthetically it looks good, I say to them as like, all right, like I get what you're trying to go for. It's absurdism, I get, but you didn't need that, You could just kind of leave it in the apartment, like with the previous scene, which is great, one of the best scenes in my opinion. The Q&A scene, right, which of course is meant to be an updated version of the 78 film, right? So that's what I say, like, like when there's humor, okay, I get, but at times it could be a little shoehorn at times, right? I'll throw another example. That last conversation that you brought up earlier with Ricardo, with Lex and Superman. Was Superman coming out and saying, "Look, I am just as human as you," right? It's interrupted by Crypto coming and attacking Lex. Like I get it, like it's funny, yes, but they could have let the scene breathe just a little bit, let the music swell just a little bit more. And then you drop the joke with Crypto. You just sort of drop it like halfway into it. Like it could have gone on just a little bit longer. That's why I felt like overall, like if the show just had more time, like more screen time, it could just let more scenes breathe even more. And if James had just listened on the humor just a little smidge, then we would have gotten like just really more emotionally impactful moments. But again, I just going off of my viewing that I saw from yesterday, right? So just before we go forward, just any thoughts on the inclusion of humor in the film? Well, his style of humor,
a couple things. I mean, in general, I actually think that this film is dialed back from his previous. I think that this is not, especially when you compare it to something like The Suicide Squad, which was the last film he made for DC, or even something like Peacemaker. I think that this film is less funny. Bold take, but this film is less funny than those films because there's a lot of discussion in the pop culture sphere about bathos and the idea of movies that like comic book movies in particular are guilty of this, that have sequences where what is supposed to be an emotional scene is undercut by a joke. The big example, I think one of the best examples is something like Doctor Strange, where he finally puts on he puts on the cape and looks in the mirror and it's this big scene and the music is swelling, and then the cape starts brushing his face and they turn it into a joke. Essentially it's like, look at this important scene, undercut it. I think that Gunn is a little smarter with that kind of thing than a lot of people in this sphere. So for example, in the Guardians movies, and if you pay attention, anytime that a joke is undercut, especially verbally, it's actually the characters being uncomfortable with their feelings.
Right.
It's Gunn highlighting that a lot of times, especially men, will use humor as a way. Like I literally have a friend who the more uncomfortable he gets in a social situation, the more he will want to make jokes and kind of like, haha, let's not talk about our feelings, let's laugh instead.
Right.
And I think that there's obviously like a bit of like there's a little bit of that in this movie, but I think Gunn dials it back. I'm actually going to talk specifically about the scene you talked about with the colors, because I think that scene. I don't think that scene is meant to be funny. I don't think that Gunn is including the like dimensional fight in the background to make that scene like to undercut the drama of that scene.
Right.
I
don't have a problem with the scene either, because it's more like, oh, Superman needs to rest. Like he
Yes.
acknowledges that he has to like chill
And
out for a while, and they could handle it. You have to respect that.
And I think the other thing is that I think Gunn is also just deliberately making it prettier, because I think that it's a purely aesthetic decision, because I think that, as I said earlier, Gunn is very smart about, okay, this is a comic book movie. So what is it about comic books that people won't get to see in regular movies that we have to include in comic book movies? Well, it's the fantastical. So, and bringing in a lot of these fantastic possibilities into the world of cinema. So, for example, in that sequence, if you include, like, one of the things I found that scene really beautiful, because it's such a really, and I do think it's powerful, because it's this really big, this frank conversation between Lois and Clark that starts out about the situation, but it also kind of gets into their feelings and their relationship and stuff like that. And throughout the whole scene, there is this beautiful cascade of color in the background, and it makes the scene just visually so much, because you know what, if I wanted a scene where two characters talked about their feelings in a more frank, earnest way, I can see that in a regular drama. There's plenty of dramas out there that I can watch that has that scene, but the thing that those dramas cannot have that this scene has is this fantastical element that introduces this color that allows the scene that otherwise could be very banal painted with this beautiful like cascade of colors in the background that are making the scene just more visually vibrant and exciting and just a little bit more pleasant to look at from an aesthetic perspective. I like, obviously there's still comedy in the movie, but I do genuinely think that, and I think whether or not, I think like the Crypto attacking Lex Luthor bit, like I don't remember if Crypto interrupted Superman's speech or if Crypto attacked Luthor.
A little after,
I thought it was after. Yeah, I thought it was after, because I think that Crypto interrupted Lex Luthor's clapback, which I think is much better. Like he didn't like undercut Superman's speech about how human he is. He interrupted Luthor's clapback. Yeah, exactly, which I think is a key difference there. Like Gunn allows Superman to have a monologue where he talks about how human he is, and then when it comes time for Lex Luthor to give his villain clapback, it's like he's like, all right, this guy's had too much opportunity to talk this movie. Let's get Crypto in here.
Right, so Metamorpho. Let me just talk about Metamorpho for a bit. Okay, so for me, I did not watch the last trailer, or like after the first official trailer, right? That excluding that I'm not including the teaser, but the official trailer. I didn't watch anything else, so I didn't want to know about anything else that was going to happen, right? So I was surprised that Metamorpho was in this, right? I'm not too familiar with the character, right? But I didn't know about the kid that he have, and all right, just using the fact that the kid is used as leverage was really interesting, and you know it's playing towards the kids in the audience, so it was cool seeing Superman trying to save the kid and whatnot, right? But I like how they use Metamorpho here, in particular how it starts off with him using pretty much making a kryptonite hand basically to weaken Superman. That was a really smart call. Right? So about that, let's touch quickly.
They established earlier that kryptonite is more or less gotten rid of or destroyed. So it have one thing to get
right.
That guy,
Okay. Well, I missed that line. I actually missed that line.
Well, because even in the comics, it is something that a lot of DC editors, as long as there has been kryptonite, there's kind of been an unspoken problem that there's always too much kryptonite in DC, and I really like the fact that like anytime, and so periodically DC has to come up with creative ways to limit the amount of kryptonite, and like I really like the fact that there isn't any in the film, So Lex Luthor has to use
Right.
Metamorpho to create kryptonite. That was really clever. Like I really liked that a lot.
Yeah, and just to go back to James Gunn's filmography, like I see Metamorpho as just the weird character in all of this, right? So like in
Yes.
Guardians, you can make the argument that Groot is the weirdest character, right? You can make the argument, right?
Yes.
Or in the Suicide Squad, it's Polka Dot Man, right? So in this case, it's Metamorpho, this really
Jesus.
weird guy, but he has these really badass powers. And yes, you're right, with the whole exploding himself, well, the acid body that he explodes. Love that, right? But I just did not expect the kid. But I get why, because he's a good guy who just trapped in a situation, right?
Uh-huh.
That being said, as we move quickly, right? Didn't see the whole pocket universe thing coming a mile away, but it was a stretch for me. Like, I just thinking, you know what? Like Lex is just this tech billionaire asshole guy, right? He's like the worst version of Elon Musk, right? Or Jeff Bezos, right? But I didn't think the guy would actually like create a pocket universe and basically make it a prison. Now I like in terms of James Gunn's writing, where after they fight the kaiju, he says, should we put it in like a zoo, like a man-made zoo or something like that? I was thinking. So I can't remember. I'll need your help with this, Ricardo, right? So I can't remember from the Superman the 90s series, right? But who was the character, the alien, whoever it is, who had like the spaceship that was just basically like this zoo with all
the collector, I forget his name, the collector, but he's a collector.
Right,
And
he's
that's
a
Superman,
collector, right. So when he mentioned the whole zoo thing, I was thinking about that character. So I was surprised that, hey, Lex actually have something like that, right? But it caught me completely by surprise, because when you first see it, I just they're thinking, oh, this is how he got the kaiju, right? He didn't just grow him like, genetically, because I assume maybe he did, right? Or whatever. I don't know, right? Because I don't think the show says, right? But I was surprised that you're seeing. And this is James just going ape shit here. And yes, some of the imagery is on the nose, but I was like, all right, I get where you're coming from. So you literally have monkeys, but they're not on typewriters, they're on computers, and they type in a bunch of stuff on Reddit about real anti-Superman shit. I'm like, all right, James, I get it. I get it. A lot of the nose I get, right? Dude, he has bloggers, he has newspaper article writers as prisoners, I'm like, all right, James, I get it, I get it,
The character's name is the Preserver.
Oh, okay, the Preserver. Okay, right. But in the context of how big of a asshole Lex is, I understand. But it's like, oh gosh, man, literally everybody who pisses you off, you put into this place. But he really,
one of his ex-girlfriends were there.
Yeah, exactly. And he eventually puts Eve Tessmacher, who is like, I didn't expect to see her in this movie, right? I didn't expect her in this at all, right? And I was even more surprised that Jimmy at a point in time was her ex at a point in time. Like I was like, all right, Jimmy.
Jimmy just raised it up, very low accurate Jimmy.
Right, Jimmy. Right, okay, bro. But
I was not familiar with your game, Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy's son. Okay.
I had to talk to a friend that I saw the movie with, where I was like, has Jimmy Olsen always had ridiculous levels of Riz? Like, what the hell? And he was like, yeah, this is kind of a running joke in the comic.
Thank you, yeah.
Like, Jimmy Olsen apparently has crazy game for some reason.
Yeah, but that's a wrap up the whole pocket universe thing, right? So yes, it is insane. It's insane, folks. It's really insane. It's over the top. They really had me at monkeys on computers. When I saw that, I was like, wow, this is where we go at. This, again, Warner trusted James with this. They trusted with this. And it still kind of works in a goofy sort of way, right? But it was totally unexpected, right? Even more unexpected is the beats with the black hole and the river stuff, which, yeah, logically, I don't think makes sense, and I don't really understand the logic of it anyway. The river part, for example, and then how it was able to form this black hole and how it eventually leads to this rift and all that kind of stuff. But I will say I do like how it sort of goes back to 78 Superman, where, yes, you had the earthquake and, Superman had to close the San Andreas fault and all that kind of stuff. So I saw what he was getting at, right? I saw the references, that particular reference to the old film, right? But it was just a lot, boy. Again, pocket universe, monkeys on computers, and now black holes and that river thing that does whatever it does. I don't know what it does. Right. Can it say something that I can't remember what it said? But it was a lot, boy. But again, it's just James just going ape shit at this point in time. So yes, as we wind on here, and any thoughts on the whole pocket universe subplot. See.
Yeah. For me, this is probably the weakest part of it. Of having to take it. It's very comic booky. It works like it, but I felt it just from getting from A to B, and the beats wasn't as strong as it could have been. That's how I felt about it. Not like it was bad, but it felt like a kind of this just a scene that had to happen. Like it, but nothing was that special. But that's the scene where they had oh God, the character's name Mali, I think, what is his name? Where Jim Gunn kills the guy.
The Russian roulette scene.
Yes.
Right. Yes, but that is just for that. It's just that, and then to give Metamorpho his arc about Superman and how far he carried. Because like, look, James Gunn, just using the conceit of fear, and how he had to just kind of stand up to bullies and these kind of things, and him seeing Lex go that far is like, all right, time for him to like turn around, and it's a simple moment, total episode of Superman kind of shit. They make it work.
Yeah. So that's just last few points, right? So side characters and then post-credit scenes, right? So side characters. I really dug the whole Jonathan and Martha Kent moments. I'm glad that Jonathan is alive in this world. That works.
They had him like real hicks in this boy.
Yeah, boy. Like I cleaned your boots. Like I didn't expect that really sudden drawl from Martha, but I was like, wow, like that's some thick southern accent there, boy. But no lie, and I think it's because I saw this a day after my dad's funeral, right? That moment, that one-on-one convo with Jonathan and Clark, boy, that really hit me, boy. Especially where he says, just paraphrasing here, look, we're not really here to tell you how to live your life, we're just here to guide you. But at the end of the day, you have to choose your path, right? But just take from what we have been teaching you over the years and chart your own course, boy. And that hit me, That hit me. That almost brought me to bad tears. It almost brought me to bad tears, right? I was let down with the little amount of Perry White to this movie, man, because I love Wendell Pierce. I love the actor. I loved him since I saw him in The Wire. I was like, he there, right? And like near the end, when the third act was set up, all right, he get a little moment and he literally chewing his cigar and whatnot. What I will give the show credit. I love where after when the smoke clears, where he and all know, Superman and Lois is a thing. I love that moment where he just tells Jimmy, like I forget, like
where he was like, so how long's that been going on for?
Yeah. that moment worked for me, right? But yes, I wanted more Perry White, man. And Eve Tessmacher, how the user, yes, she wasn't just the selfie taking individual in the film, but I like what she was doing. But yeah, she was the same ditzy individual that we know her from both the 78 film and her version as Kitty in Superman Returns. But how they frame it with the whole social media thing and selfies and all that, it worked. Again, it's on the nose, but they make it work, right? And then last but not least, Lois, I like how she was worked into the story. I like that they could have, and I know this was mean criticism that you guys had with her character in Man of Steel and Superman Returns. Yeah, just find a reason to shoehorn it into the main issues, the main conceit, right? But I like that at least she's given something to do in this case is just to fly, to fly Mr. Terrific's ship. And then earlier on when she goes with Mr. Terrific to save Superman. So I like that. But it wasn't like she was shoehorned into the whole stuff with Ultraman and Lex, right? So that works, right? You could tell that James really was looking at the older films and saying, how could I do this correctly? Even right down in the third act with the whole rifting and buildings crashing into each other. I like that it wasn't like the destruction of Metropolis that, I had always complained about when I first saw Man of Steel, right? And last but certainly not least, the post-credit scenes, right? The first one, it's a wallpaper shot of, Clark and Superman and Crypto on the moon looking at Earth. Yeah. That was nice. That was cool. That's cool. Oh, I forgot to mention, the inclusion of Supergirl caught me by surprise because I saw the poster prior to seeing this movie, right? So I thought that was going to be one of the post-credit scenes, but actually was not. I like that she just sort of shows up and she's the owner of Crypto. I was like, I like that. That's cool, right? And
suddenly it makes so much sense, yeah.
Yes, it does. And her just being this wild, younger Kryptonian make a lot of sense too. So I want to see how they're gonna explore that in the next film, right? In her film, sorry, right? And then of course, as I wrap things up, the last post-credit scene, it didn't feel like a waste of time, but it was a nice little joke, right? But I like that it sort of shows how both individuals, as a Superman and Mr. Terrific, see things, right? So it's about a building that hasn't been fully shifted back normally because of what happened with the Rift. And I like that it's just like, we should do something about this. So it's like, nah, just leave it so. I like that. It's a simple moment. And I know people will
But
sort of roll their eyes like, this is stupid, this
yeah,
is a
but
waste of time.
and
But I
only,
like that.
to me, that's just a simple meta gag.
It is,
right?
it is,
Because
yeah, it
it's
is.
a gag about, basically it's a commentary about the movie itself. Like,
Oh,
good.
okay.
we fixing a universe, like we're fixing something. Like it's about him.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it like that. I thought it was
Right, it's
about
just-
their perfectionisms, their
You're
their
right.
OCDs, if you will, right?
Right.
Superman always having to save the day, and terrific. Like, all right, logically, I can't do anything about this now. So why are you
Right.
making a big deal about it? But I didn't see it as
Right.
oh, it's meant to be a commentary on cross correcting what was done, what was left behind from
Right.
the damage of the DCU. I should have
Right.
seen it like that, but okay, right?
That's how I thought about it. That's how I thought the joke was.
I also really thought it was funny that we also got to. It also felt like a great time where we got to see that this Superman doesn't swear, and how that's kind of like, it's one of those things about him. I've noticed that this is a Superman that's very, like, I've noticed a lot of people really like this Superman. It's interesting, Matthew, you talked about how this movie's not going to be for everyone, but like, I don't know. I've been seeing a lot of people respond to this very well. And one of the things I think that there is something kind of very likable about this Superman, and one of the things is the fact he doesn't swear. And it's funny the way they do it in the trailer. He's like, I could be such a gosh darn jerk sometimes.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, and even when Crypto is like pulling out his cape, he's not like, get the get the F away from me, whatever.
Right?
So,
No,
so I
he
like
never
that.
no. Like he's always like. I think it's actually the reason why he hates the hashtag super shit, because he doesn't like it because it's also a swear word.
Yes, yeah. You're right.
Which
You're right.
is
Yeah.
really funny.
Yeah, no, they have him like a complete Boy Scout. He's saving other dogs, save squirrels, stuff
Yeah,
like
dude
that.
saves a squirrel though. It's just like, okay,
all these little-
okay, James,
So
okay,
good.
James, okay, James, okay.
all these little things that they try to lead it to. I just think, again, just to me, that as a good start for a new universe, I really want to see where they're going to go forward. As I say, like, we'll get to see other people, like, even if they have a small part in it, it's just the purpose of it is just to have them go forward. So, like, like you say, Hawk didn't really get much. She's probably gonna get stuff in the future. Like, I heard her in the interview, she talking about, trying to do something with Green Lantern, even though, she there's something kind of thirsty given who the Green Lantern is. So come on, and stuff like that, right? I could see them just building from this. As they say, Supergirl up next. Really excited for that. I'm a big fan of Tom King. He almost nails it for me. So I really want to see if they're gonna build from there and make that work. And yeah, it's the next shot of this. If there's anybody who I trust, as they say, in Gun we trust, but it's Gun don't miss, Gun don't jam from here on in. So let's see if they're gonna make it work. And from here, and there's my last point. I just glad that it's turned out pretty decent and for what it was. And we can see what they could work with. Yeah.
I wanted to mention something about the side characters, and I think it's actually really important, because that whole subplot of and Ricardo mentioned this as well, but the subplot of the reveal of the rest of Superman's, the Jor-El and his wife's message to Superman is really interesting. First of all, it ties into James Gunn's wider themes about, like, listen, I once made a post back when I had Twitter where I had a picture of, like, the White Dragon and Ego the Living Planet, and I said, there's evil, and then there's a father figure in a James Gunn movie. Because James Gunn often has this, I mean, and this comes from his own, he said this in interviews, like, he has his own tensions with, like, being a kid from a very, very troubled upbringing, but he often will have these tensions between biological parents and adoptive parents.
Right.
And I think it's the thing he hones in on with Superman in a really interesting way. And he's picking up on a precedent here. I mean, it's what Ricardo was saying about how there are filmmakers whose their thesis is you got to move on from Krypton, because John Byrne, for example, in his reboot of the character of Superman in the 80s, was definitely very much like Krypton is not portrayed as it is not portrayed as the utopia that it was portrayed in, like, earlier, like, Silver Age or even Golden Age comics. Krypton is a planet that kind of destroys itself because of the way its population would kind of stagnated over time and that kind of thing. And the idea that the Kryptonians were full of themselves, and the Kryptonians had developed kind of a bit of a supremacist thing going on. And I think that incorporating that but then also evoking the 70s films with the way that Jor-El and his wife are dressed
Right.
is fascinating.
And
There's
then I think that they're gonna. As I said, I make the joke. I said they could totally do a Mr. Oz storyline. If you know what Mr. Oz is, you have to look that up. But it's not super much of a deep cut. It's a relatively recent arc. I think they could totally do a Mr. Oz storyline because of who they have as Jor-El. Right? It's like, oh shit, he's
Yeah.
Jor-El. All right, would. They could do something with that. So it's like, all right, I could see that. See them doing that going forward. As I said, yeah, there's this because they kind of hint at this in Man of Steel. Like again, it's a shame that Man of Steel didn't really flesh this out better. But to me, that whole stagnation culture thing and why it stagnated and so on and so forth is like interesting material. So I don't know, like they could. I want to see where they're going to build from it. Hopefully, they'll have the chance to do this and get going forward. We'll see.
I mean, listen, this movie's made enough money that any ideas for sequels that they have, they're definitely going to be allowed.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Well, like, yeah, I think that tension between like biological, and then it ties directly so beautifully into the Kents.
Yeah. Right.
Where like, Pa Kent's whole thing about like, well, parents aren't here to tell you what kind of people to be. They're here to give you the tools to be like the best version of yourself. Like we're not, as parents, we're not here. Because yeah, when you think back over the message, it's very much like, our son, like, here's what you're going to do. You're going to grow up and take over. Like, it's very instructive. It's very like Superman has a lot of affection for the message, but he clearly but like Jor-El and his wife are clearly treating it much more instructional. But Pa Kent himself says, like, we're not here to tell our kids what kind of people to be. We're just here to help them be the best versions of themselves that they can be. And I really found, I think aside from that and the like, and the, it's part of the film's overall hope punk theme, but as far as specifically the idea, it's one of the film's strongest ideas is that idea of parenting and the idea that like, more toxic parents are the kind of people who like tell their kids. Again, you see this earlier in Gunn's filmography with Ego the Living Planet, how Ego is only interested in Star-Lord as a means to his own end, very descriptive of like, you're going to be this kind of person, and if you don't completely obey me, then I guess I'll just hook you up as a battery to use you for my powers that way instead of that kind of thing. Like very much like they're more benign in the tradition of James Gunn toxic parent figures, but they're still part of that same.
I don't know. I find the reveal was kind of dark when you think about it. That's some straight.
It is very dark.
Yeah, given like the power differential, that's why it was darker. Like for me, it's like, well, he's not just some guy. It's fucking Superman. I mean, come on. That real dark if you think about it, the conceit of what's going on here, though. And especially when Clark. Yeah, it's very, very dark. Like, but as I say, Matthew mentioned Omni-Man. It's straight up something out of Invincible.
It leads to one of my favorite running jokes in the movie, which is the secret harem.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That cracked me up every time.
That moment caught me by surprise too. I was like, God, this was just going to be one joke, one time that it's it. The way just keep going for a little bit more. I was like, oh gosh, but it was funny. It was funny.
Like, and for a moment, it's one of those moments that's like so weird because at first you're like, oh, this surely must be edited. There's no way this guy's mom would leave him a message telling him that he has to have a harem of women to impregnate to continue the race. But no, she's serious. And then
even better is how the public believes it, right? Like,
Well, it ties into a really dark theme, and it's very prominent, especially in America right now. And it kind of ties into the whole controversy around the big controversy during the promotion of the film where James Gunn referred to Superman as an immigrant and the right-wing outrage machine kicked into high gear because even though they say they only object to illegal immigrants, there's a lot of people in the right-wing spheres that kind of just think immigrant is a dirty word. And so they don't like it in connection with Superman because Superman is an all-American hero. But there's a very dark theme that Gunn is topping into in regards to immigration, which is if you're an immigrant in the United States, you only get to you have to remember, you can't continually have to remember that at any time your approval can be revoked. Like you always, it's an absolute, some of the worst version of respectability politics where like the people of this country can turn on you in a moment. as an immigrant, like just depending on like the slightest whims, like the slightest like, oh, your country's in the news for a bad reason. Now we hate you and you're a terrible person and you need to go die or something. Get out of here, that kind of thing. And I really think that like Lex Luthor weaponizing that against Superman is brilliant. Like it's perfect.
This is something that Man of Steel could have easily, like, we should have got a proper Man of Steel sequel to leverage this idea. Because this is something, as I said, Gunn clearly, to me, I don't think there's an accident. I think that Gunn might have consulted Snyder on this, or at least, had some back and forth on this. Because, like, I don't think it's a coincidence.
I'm laughing is because of that clip that went viral, even though I haven't seen the episode yet, of Rick and Morty.
Right, Rick and Morty.
With Zach and James themselves talking pitching ideas.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to get to that. Just like, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Rick and Morty episode exists right before the show come out. That kind of thing.
They're friends.
Yeah, exactly. They're clearly like it's the same. It's again the Yang to Snyder's Ian. It one bounces off the other in a certain conceit. Again, it's a damn shame that they could have not have a proper sequel to Man of Steel to make that shit work. Instead of get the utter garbage of Batman v Superman. Whatever.
Right.
But yeah.
But like.
Yeah, go ahead. Last point and then other. Yeah.
I was about to say, because like, yeah, you're completely right. Man of Steel ties with that similar xenophobia. Yeah. Like there's definitely like I think it was you in the previous Reign of the Superman bits we were talking about the whole Superman's interview before Congress has the vibe of post 9/11 like interrogations of being Muslim in America post 9/11, like that kind of thing. And I think that and again in the comics, some of the best Superman arcs, again, Superman Birthright, written by Mark Waid, the same guy who wrote Kingdom Come. Lex Luthor does a similar thing where he weaponizes Superman's alienness against to try and drive a wedge between him and the public, because at the end of the day, Lex Luthor is upset that Superman has stolen the adulation that he thinks is rightfully his. Like he thinks he's the one who deserves to be so praised and loved by people. He doesn't get that people love Superman because Superman is good. He thinks that it's because of Superman's specialness. So he wants to interfere with that relationship as much as possible. And that's why if you look at it again, there's a similar thing that happens in Superman Smashes the Klan that was published fairly recently, where again, Superman's alienness is kind of the barrier between him and the general and the general people, because that's how you create suspicion. It's like, okay, he's saying all these good things, but he seems to be this good person, but can we really trust him? Like, is he truly human? Like, do we understand him? Like that kind of thing. And and that being such an effective way to like alienate him from the very people he wants to protect. It's also great because it doesn't stop any of the like. I mean, he and Gardner do get in that almost get in that altercation where he's like, if any of this is true, you're the very sort of alien menace I'm supposed to protect this planet from. And Superman's like they almost fight. I do love that guy Gardner. The first thing they say when they get out of earshot of the public is, "Dude, you have a secret harem."
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
I don't know.
Well, last words. All right, so I'll just do my last words quickly, right? So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, but I'm just going off of my just really recent viewing, right? But I really need to see this again, hopefully on the big screen. And I'd recommend, give it a shot, man. But just be forewarned. Sorry for using that word, CC, but just be forewarned that this is a James Gunn movie. This is James Gunn Superman. So if you just don't like that overly self-referential meta, this is a comic book, so we're gonna true comic book characters and comic book scenarios at you, and you just more prefer something a little bit more grounded or something a little bit more calmer, so to speak, then yeah, you may not like this. But if you just want just pure summer blockbuster feel goodness, after you use feel goodness, right? Despite the material, but feel goodness.
It is.
Definitely check out Superman. But I know for sure that if I just give it this at least one more viewing, I could put this up there as one of the best shows that I've seen for the year. So I have a slot of a list right now for Superman, because I want to see Superman make it. Maybe Fall Out No Fantastic Four First Steps might make it there too, but this is the reign of the Superman special, so we just stick with Superman for now. So yeah, I could see this being in my best stuff. Maybe, I don't know about top 10 for now. I'm not sure about that for now, right? But I really feel like if I watch it again, I will admire it even more. Because the first time, I just did not expect the James Gunn isms to be as high as they were, right? But yeah, I had fun with this, right? So yeah, Ricardo, last thoughts, and then CC, you could close things off.
Yeah. I just really like this. Like that this exists in the way it does. I had very few problems in that sense. Of its conceit and what James Gunn is going for, and yeah, most if not all of it works. In its own way. I really like what we get, and it's a really good starting point if we're going to get a new universe. If they're planning to in the way we think they're going to do it. But again, given James Gunn's track record of just putting a twist in a smart place, even though only because this guy is getting predictable that I could kind of see what going forward as it is. But I could see him doing something really fascinating with relatively unknown characters and building that because DC right for that. So they could make it work. I dug the hell out of this. I'm really glad this movie came out well and it works. I really liked it.
Right, and yeah, last word, CC.
Obviously, I still stand by my 10 out of 10, and I'm just going to quickly explain why. As I said on my Letterboxd review, James Gunn gave us Hope Punk Superman. And I think if there's one thing that I want to kind of say from that obviously carries over from the Reign of the Superman special is that this is a character where it's been so difficult to bring this character to screen effectively. Like for some reason, like I remember there was some memo. I think it was during the weird inner period where we'd had BVS, but Snyder had been fired, and we were coming out with films like we were coming out with films like Wonder Woman and Shazam and Aquaman, but were they part of the DC? We weren't sure. How do they tie into each other? And at some point there was a memo that circulated where there was a studio exec who said something like there was an insider who revealed that the Warner Brothers execs were nervous because they wanted to figure out a way to make Superman relevant. Because there's always been this corporate suspicion of Superman as a character. Because again, Ricardo flagged there was literally someone wrote a whole book on attempts to make a Superman movie. Like literally there are whole books that were written about all the different times this guy didn't make it to film. And not only did James Gunn bring Superman to screen, but he did so in a way that kept what I love about the character intact, which is the hope, which is I feel like many people misunderstand the character of what, Superman's just a super powered guy who believes in hope and everything's great. Like, what's compelling about that? And I'm like, he's a good person. He's a hopeful person. He's a kind person. But the thing is, that doesn't make his life any easier. In fact, there's so many moments in the movie, as I said in the non-spoiler section, where Superman's life would be harder if he took the easy way out and if he was less kind. Again, that whole fight with the kaiju, the Justice Gang showed that he could have ended it a lot sooner if he had killed the monster. But he's trying to figure out a way to stop the creature from killing anyone else while also trying to make sure he doesn't have to kill it. And I think that that's a really powerful Superman. And I'm so... that's the Superman I find the most compelling, again, I think we've all had moments where in life you've been if I had just fewer scruples, if I had just fewer morals, this thing I'm struggling with would be easier, this thing that I'm dealing with would be less complicated. I could you see immoral people or people who are who are prepared to do bad things, getting ahead. And you're if I what would it cost to not be what would it cost to what would it cost me to not be as good a person? Sure, I could have all these things these other people have, but what would it be for me as a person? And I have wanted that from a Superman movie for so long. I didn't get it with Man of Steel. I didn't get it with Superman Returns. I never got it with any of Snyder's films. I didn't get that with some of the later, even the later Reeves films. I only got that with the first few Reeves films. I didn't really get that with 3 or 4. And we finally get it again. And that to me is kind of why I keep coming back to this movie again and again. And just yes, I get to see one of my favorite filmmakers get to work with a character I love, but it's not always a recipe for success. I'm not going to pretend, for example, that Guillermo del Toro, I love the man. He's probably my favorite contemporary filmmaker, but I'm not going to pretend that he would have necessarily knocked Superman out of the park. And I'm sure he'd be the first to say that. But seeing Superman argue that being kind is the real punk rock, and then literally ending the movie with punk rocker featuring Iggy Pop is my I emotional just thinking about it, and especially seeing it in the theater. Like, just phenomenal. 10 out of 10. If you have not seen this movie, go see it. I know if you are on the fence about this movie, it's the kind of movie where if you do end up liking it, you will be sorry that you didn't see it on the big screen, is what I'm going to say.